This is Fam Electric Ghost, and we are live on our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch channels with Regina Fae.
Yeah.
Welcome to the program again. Previously, we had you on the audio-only podcast, so now we have you on this video podcast, and we're glad that you decided to come back again.
I'm glad to be invited.
So you have some new music, and I'll give a little intro. I'll just talk a little bit about your background. You're a singer-songwriter. You mix folk and country and classical and pop styles in your music. We talked about that before. You like to talk about stories inspired by love, friendship, and adventure and imagination. You like to write about your own life and embody different characters in your songs. And so you've got a new project called Those Were the Days. I got that right?
Yes, that's right.
And it's an EP. It's got 7 songs in it. We'll talk more about that. But the first single, A Town from Somewhere, we actually have the YouTube video for. And what we like to do is actually give people in this version of the show an example of your music, and then we get to talk about it, and they actually understand what we're talking about. So we're going to try to get into that. So if you don't mind, we're going to play your video, and then we'll put you on mute for a second, and then we'll run it through, and then we'll talk about it on the back end of it. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we're going to get to the video, queuing it up, A Town from Somewhere, and we'll start it. Invite.
There used to be a town somewhere with purple skies and salt in the air. I still see it in my mind. The streets would whisper in my ear of all the things to love and fear, of the days that you were mine. You were mine. Now I meet you in my dreams, the best town there is, and I think you should know. Now you're a memory. Once you would sing for me, but I still dream of you. I dream of you. We used to dance through the rain, let the glitter circle down the drain. Just right here is now so far. Paint a picture in the sky. Close your eyes and give it a try, of the days the world was ours. The world was ours. Now I meet you in my dreams, the best town there is, and I think you should know. Now you're a memory. Once you would sing for me, but I still dream of you. I dream of you.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, that was Regina Fae with her song, A Town from Somewhere, from her new EP coming. Sorry about that. But yeah, so this is the first single and video from the EP project?
Yes.
Are you doing more videos for this project, or is this like one of the only videos for it, or are you planning on doing more?
I have one more video planned. I am currently thinking about whether I will or not do videos for the other songs, but I definitely have one more planned.
One more plan. That's cool. So since the last time we talked, this is the main project that you were working on. I think we had talked and had another episode where we talked some other stuff that you had worked on. But it's interesting during COVID. Like how hard was it to put together this song and the video, given the the restrictions and the limitations. So maybe you want to talk about like maybe the song first and then the video.
Yeah, so this song, actually, all but just one song from this EP I wrote while in quarantine. And this song, I thankfully have my own little recording studio set up here at home. So I was able to do it here. I have my keyboard, so the piano is also me. And so it wasn't too hard, I think, because I had already everything set up. As for the video, it it was fun, and I had to be creative because I couldn't obviously have anyone else in it or go most places. So the thing is, it's mostly me in front of a green screen and singing along to the song, and then I edited all the other layers on top of it with stock footage.
Well, I think that's I think that's what a lot of artists have to try to do. What they can in this situation. I still think like the end result was a very beautiful video.
Oh, thank you.
And I think it's always good to see like how an artist interprets their own work, visually, compared to if they give it to someone else, because there's a different feel. Like if you give it to a director or another artist, then they interpret it. So this is your interpretation of your own work. So it's kind of closer to maybe your original idea of what it is. And then it's like, so also when you do a video compared to like not having a video, you kind of like, you're setting like the imagery for the song, but everybody always, will interpret the song the way, every fan interprets the song a different way. And even the video, different people will interpret things, what they see. Everybody's got this universal idea of what they see. But so is the concept in the video, was it originally like, is it close to what your lyrical concept was, or do you decide to do it a little different?
I think it's definitely close to the original lyrical concept because for me, I see music as visuals as well. And some songs are more visual than others, but they all have certain colors associated with them. Like different music sounds like different colors to me. It just does. So this song is light purple, so I went for a lot of light purple in the video as well. And the visuals as well, I had some idea of what the town would look like. So it's a seaside town, so there are palm trees, and so I incorporated all of those into the video as well.
And so this is like a nostalgia kind of memory concept. And so is this town like a key part of the idea of the whole EP? Or those were the days? Is this like a central scene of the whole project, or just a part of it?
I think this is more just a part of it because there are quite a few songs that take place in different locations, and actually locations are very important in all those songs now that I realize. So for this one, this town is just for this song, whereas the other ones have their own little universe.
Okay, so you have this whole like universe or like set of the thematic like I guess the environment in which it's taking place is this nostalgic kind of period. So when you're thinking about nostalgia, like how far back are you going in this story, like in terms of your own like thought of like is it nostalgic like pre-COVID or pre something, like what period of time does it represent?
So this song I think is definitely pre-COVID, but it's looking back on it from a COVID perspective. So the image I had in my head was someone in a town that's very empty, that's very lonely, that used to be alive, and they're looking back at it and remembering how different it used to be.
Yeah, I think a lot of have you found that because of the time you have to work in your home studio and not be on the road and not be like in the world, like other artists I've talked to during COVID have taken this time to really kind of focus on their music in a way maybe that they couldn't before because they have more time. Some people, some bands are like, well, they're very frustrated because they like to play live. It's like live is like 80% of what they do. And other people who are like singer songwriters and kind of focused on their art have said, well, this is kind of good. I've actually been able to explore things I didn't think I would ever have a chance to. So have you kind of had maybe both issues?
I think both, because I do love performing live, and I would go around pubs in the area, especially. And well, now they're all closed because COVID. But at the same time, it gave me this chance to really think about my songs without thinking about how I would perform them to other people and just to myself.
Yeah, I think I've taken a lot of time to like run through like diving into like more like I don't really have to care about how am I gonna take this song with like all these overdubs and actually play it. I could concentrate on like I want to create something that maybe it's hard to manage if I try to play it live, and I'd actually have to like kind of take it down a lot. And I haven't had to worry about my set performances. I haven't had to worry about like what would I do. I haven't even had to like practice my sets. I just keep on writing new material, and I said, well, I better practice some of these if I'll never be able to play them. um, so it's like, yeah, it's a different mindset when you know you've got a tour. You kind of have this like, well, how am I going to perform this? And then you kind of rehearse yourself and you set it up. But then now, if you don't have to rehearse, it's like, well, what? I just keep on making more content.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Does that become like an issue for you, or do you like, okay, well, I could always just play this acoustic because I wrote it. I know what it is.
I think it has been a mix of it because now that I can just listen to my songs in their produced form all the time, um, it essentially meant that when I'm playing them just acoustic, it like I can hear the backing track in my head, and I'm like, oh, but the piano is missing, or this is missing,
Yeah.
and it's different.
Yeah. So have you done a lot of live streaming because of COVID? Have you maybe joined, like done your own or been part of like online festivals? Have you looked into that, or have you been doing that?
I was part of one last year. Uh, One of the pubs here that did a lot of the music nights actually had a live stream on Facebook. So I thought that was a really great idea because it's like being there, but being there virtually.
Hmm.
So I was in that, which was really nice.
So was that physically there with nobody there, or were you just doing it from your home studio and then they just streamed it out?
Yeah, it was just from my home studio.
Yeah, because I've seen like there's some bands that have actually gone to like sets, like television sets or studios, and done like no audience, but they're on a stage with the lights and everything. I saw this band from Colorado called Tennis, and then the Gorillas, really big, did like a Christmas show from like a studio, and they're trying to different things where they try to get people to like pay for tickets online, which I think is kind of problematic. If people are like, well, I don't want to pay for something online because I can just watch it for free, like, um, but it just seems, yeah, that's been a big problem for a lot of artists. Is like was that a big part of your whole artist way of being, like the live music? Does that really like end up hurting you think as an artist, like your brand? Do you feel like you're not able to push it because you can't play live?
I think because it's been so long, I kind of start to forget exactly how it was like playing live,
Hmm.
which sounds really sad. but
Yeah.
but I did enjoy playing live, but at the same time, I think doing production and doing videos was also a big part of my music. so it doesn't feel like that much of a oh no anymore.
Yeah, well, I think because of the net, because you reach out, over the pond to me. I mean, I see
Yeah.
your work, and I think because of video, because of social media, artists have alternative ways to connect. And even though COVID has been like very hard on musicians and actors, and artists of all types, um, it's I think people are being very creative. Like you did your video, you've got your EP, you're talking to me now here. So there's different ways to reach the audience, and so I think it's just engaging the audience in a way that actually is productive to artists. Not that we all have to make money, but this way to like make sure that people are engaged. I think that's the main thing, is just trying to make sure that our fans can know we're still doing things.
Yeah.
Have you found a way to connect to your fans through alternative methods, like using social media or anything?
So I recently joined TikTok,
Oh,
and
that's a good way.
it has been really fun, I have to say, because I also post some music stuff there as well, obviously, but it's a place where it's not as serious, I think.
Yeah,
So
it's
you
a
get to
lighter.
just, yeah, you get to just like engage with people like a friendly conversation rather than like, oh, this is my page kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like on Instagram, the reel. I mean, the reel and the TikTok have got the same kind of idea that,
Mm.
I think a younger generation knows how to really make a lot of comedy. There's
Yeah.
like a lot of Saturday Night Live, like sitcom like stuff. And as musicians, sometimes we take ourselves so serious that we're trying to get this idea across. Initially, when I used TikTok, I just kept on just doing what I normally do. And I said, whatever. Somebody said, wait, you really shouldn't do that because that's not what this form is for. And so I was okay. Well, I guess I got to figure something else out. I guess I'm still trying to figure it out. But so in terms of the EP, we will talk a little more about it. It's like, what's the target date for the release?
So at the moment, I'm not sure, but this summer definitely.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're trying to time it to maybe when you could actually go out and tour with it, because this year, because of the vaccines, because this year there might be more hope. Is there a thought? I've talked to some bands. Is like, okay, a lot of people are trying to time their projects to when they think they can get to do a tour. Is that kind of where your head's at?
Yeah, so here in the UK, we're supposed to go back to normal like around midsummer-ish,
Mm-hmm.
but obviously it can change. We don't know what's gonna happen. So I think, and also I really like the atmosphere of summer. I think it would fit well with
What
this
you're doing.
thing.
So yeah, so it's a matter of the timing. Because like if you know you can actually do shows, then you
Yeah,
can promote it, and that's how most musicians would work. Is like, okay, I'm going to promote this project when people can actually see me,
yeah,
so it'll actually have a bigger reaction, a bigger impact. So yeah, we have the same kind of problem in the U.S. It's like there's some places, like I think in California, saying they can do things by like June. New York, I haven't really heard. In New Hampshire, where I live, which is not really a place for electronic music, it's more for folk music. So I tend not to play in my home state. So I tend to go to like New York or go to LA or go to Boston, and I'm kind of waiting to see what's going on there. But yeah, I think it's the same idea. Like everybody's thinking the summer is when everybody's gonna be able to do something. So but I put stuff out all the time, so I kind of break the rule. um, so let me talk about, if you want to. I don't know how much you want to reveal about some of the other songs that you think you'd want to talk about as part of the project.
yep. I mean, I don't mind revealing anything, so because I like talking about these things.
Hmm.
Um, so I have 3 songs on there that are based on a book that I'm actually working on right now.
Oh wow, multimedia.
Actually, I started writing with books and then I moved on to poetry and then I moved on to songs. So it just made sense to mix them all together, I think.
Hmm.
And one of those songs is Those Were the Days, which gives the EP its title. Um, so the book is like set in a boarding school because I went to a boarding school. So it's an imaginary boarding school, but I am kind of drawing on my experiences as well. And the 3 songs are songs from the points of view of the characters in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And they're talking to each other in a way, which I didn't do before. I really like musicals, so it just made sense to do more character songs for this.
So is the book like a short story or a full novel?
Hopefully a full novel.
Is it targeted to come out around the same time as the EP, or would it come like later?
I think later, because while I'm planning the book in 2 parts, and the songs are supposed to be the parts in the second part. So the first part is a story that's from earlier on, kind of giving you a background to what these songs came out of.
Well, that's cool. Because it sounds like that because you've got like the video, you've got the EP, now you got the book, which is a novel. Potentially, this could go even more visual. Somebody could take that and do a screenplay. So, have you thought that somebody would ever turn it into like a Netflix show or Hulu show? I mean, is there something about it that you could actually see somebody turning into a film or TV project?
I think I could see that it could work, but at the moment I'm not thinking about whether it will work.
You're not trying to pitch to it. You're just trying to keep it within its form as a novel.
Yeah.
And because the novel and a TV is 2 different things, and even a film, like how somebody adapts a book to a screenplay or to a teleplay, it ends up changing it. And so either, it's kind of hard to think about it while you're doing it because it ends up, changing the focus because it's a different focus. But it's a cool idea, I think, that you have something that maybe could go that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting that I think that's part of being an artist in this world is everywhere you can figure out how to engage an audience. If you engage them with, art, I've seen more artists again. Like the new thing is like the digital art, kind of like the Bitcoin art. But this idea that you can monetize your art, which most artists are like, well, I do it because I love it, not that I want to make money. But now there's this new type of digital art that people are getting into. We already had videos. We already have, ways to do things on Instagram and TikTok. So there's all kinds of ways to engage wherever we can't engage, like on the live stage. But there's other ways, like you're putting your efforts into the novel, the video, the EP. So you're still working, So you found a way to keep moving forward.
Yeah. I think especially with quarantine, because we're basically stuck in the house all day, I have been being a lot more imaginative in that I have basically created this little world for the novel. So it's a bit of escapism, but it's also just really fun.
So do you have a publisher or distributor for that, or are you still working that out?
I'm still working that out.
Well, I look forward to it because it's something like for anybody who knows The Ghost, I started as a poet back in the 90s. I self-published a bunch of poetry. And then I got into music by saying, well, what if I take these poems and turn them into music? And do you find that being a writer that you started like from poetry first and then adapted it to music? Is that where you started with your lyrics? Were they poems or were they always songs?
So when I first started writing songs, they would start out as a poem, or like I would take an old poem that I wrote and then make them into a song. But I think at this point they just start out as songs. So sometimes they will start out with the melody, sometimes they will start out with the lyrics, but they're songs from the start.
Yeah, I think as you become a songwriter, then that's the way you think. I think when you're a poet, like I go back to some of my old poetry and then I try to turn them into songs, which means I end up doing big rewrites on them. But there's the idea of what I was doing. I said, well, I could take these ideas, and I know as songs is like poems don't necessarily work in a song. unless you're writing like Dylan or Woody Guthrie or Olive Guthrie or something like that. But yeah, it's just interesting how you can do that. And I've kind of been a big fan of I think we talked about before, the stream of consciousness style of writing. Like I might just open my mic in my studio and just say, okay, I had an idea. I was looking at something I wrote, and then I'll just open the mic and then maybe have some modular synth stuff going and just randomly kind of go wherever I feel, and then go back and listen to it and say, okay, here's the idea in here. Here's the song. After like an hour, I found 15 minutes of it that makes sense. But it's like, is that somehow like every artist does things differently? Do you like to sketch it out before you record it, or do you like to kind of get into a recording and say, well, I'll let it be what it's going to be?
So I usually have the song already written with the guitar on its own before I get into any recording. Yeah, it always starts out just with an acoustic guitar and then it goes into recording.
Yeah, so I think that's your writing instrument is the acoustic guitar more than the piano or the keyboard.
Yeah, definitely acoustic guitar.
Because is that your like first instrument is the guitar, or you just feel like the guitar makes it easier as a songwriter?
I think the guitar is just the easiest one. Because my first instrument that I ever learned was the violin, and obviously you can't sing when you're also holding a
Yeah,
violin.
that's very difficult. It's like a drummer. Drummers typically don't sing because it's too hard. Because you're just flailing, you're just doing so much activity. It's hard to concentrate on your voice. In the few drummers that could do it, you were like, well, how can they do that? Because it's hard to concentrate on you doing your instrument and still sing in some cases. That's difficult. I think the guitars and the pianos are easier. Not that other people haven't figured out how to do things, but yeah. So I actually find like, well, I can't play guitar. I'm a frustrated guitar player, so I try to make my synth sound like guitar. But yeah, a lot of times, like I find that if I just go and run a chord arrangement on a piano and then have a mic open, that I get like interesting vocals or lyrics out of that kind of exercise. Or actually, I think probably the same way a guitar player feels. Like if you're strumming that guitar, you can kind of find something that's going to go with it.
Yeah.
And I think like piano players, we find the same thing. It's like sometimes they really get that Billy Joel feel or the Ben Folds feel. Like they say, okay, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to kind of let it flow from the arrangements I'm coming up with it. So how much of like do you actually sit down and like compose something, or do you kind of let the muse or the universe kind of bring it to you, or you've got an idea, you need to kind of narrow it down, or maybe it's a degree of everything?
So usually it will be either when I'm already strumming along to the guitar that I will have an idea. Maybe I'm practicing something else, and then in between I will play something and I'm like, oh, that sounds nice. Or sometimes I will have written down an idea, like I want to write a song about this topic in particular, and then I will actually sit down and think about what that makes me feel like and write that way. So it's a bit of a mix.
Now it's interesting because you're doing production work. In terms of like how your vocals are captured, do you play with the different types of like microphone profiles to get your voice to fit the mood that you're in? Because I've been starting to play with like SM57s and C414s, and just because I find that, okay, I also play with my voice with different characters, but like it seems like when you start to get into production, there's so many different ways. Like, okay, I could do something unaffected, and I can do something with this type of mic. I can do something with that type of mic, and then kind of it builds the character of the song. So how did you get deeper into that? Because you have to do your own work.
So in terms of mics, I don't know much about mics. This is the one mic I have, and it is what I use to record my songs as well. I usually go for a more natural sound as much as I can, because at the end of the day, all these songs are primarily acoustic songs. So I want to keep it within that theme.
Well, does that help with like when you go to perform it? Because one thing, like you do a lot of studio tricks. Like if I go, like, and I kind of have to live with the fact that like, my voice is an affected voice because I play characters. So when I go live, I'm playing Josephine Electric, and it's my vocoders that everybody hears them live. What I do in the studio, but I understand like when you like more of a kind of folk based or acoustic based, you kind of got to live within like, okay, I can't really have this thing layered or affected in a way that I can't perform it because then it's not going to be, I don't know how I'm going to handle that. So, and I think also when you're right, like you probably want to get closer to the true sound of what you want rather than, I think there's this whole thing that kind of came out of the Beatles where George Martin said, well, I can record the Beatles in this kind of way that's like a Monet, right? I could have them sound like they did in Berlin, which is just like how they naturally sound on stage, or I can actually sound them like something that they couldn't sound like live. I can actually, so the studio work becomes something different than what the performed work is. So that's kind of the whole idea of the album is you can actually do this version of the music that maybe necessarily can't be reproduced, but it kind of lives in that form and it's its own piece of art. And then the performance art could be different.
Yeah, I think that's definitely very interesting to think about because it essentially means you have two works that are similar but never quite the same. But for me, because I write my songs with the guitar, so I can't really layer anything because I'm writing as I'm singing as well.
Yeah, it's just like I think like because every artist has a different style because it's like more for like I'm kind of a progressive rocker, so I like Yes and Genesis are my heroes, so I tend to look at things where I'm going to go in like Pink Floyd and I'm going to create all this layering, right? And that in itself is like okay, that's not what the original demo was. It's like the original demo might just be bass and keyboard, and then suddenly there's strings and there's modular stuff and there's effects and there's all these other things start jumping onto it, and then that's not the original idea. It kind of just keeps on building and building, and you have to decide how much do I layer on it, or how much, or do I actually just strip it down and say, well, no, all that was too much, and I'm just going to keep it more to what it really originally was, kind of like Prince demos or songs that he did where like Doves Cry, he had a bass line, he took it out because it didn't make sense to have it. And so sometimes like you have something sparse has more of an impact than you could have spent all this time adding all these other parts. And then you're like, well, it actually doesn't sound as good as if when it was kind of toned down. So do you find that you like like a more sparse arrangement than rather trying to layer too many things in?
I think it depends on the song, but even then I don't layer too much, I think. So A Town Somewhere was very minimalistic. There's just the guitar, piano, there's a cello and a bass in the back, and that's it. So that one I usually use drums in my songs as well and I layer them, but this one didn't have any of those. But on the other hand, I do like to layer a few different instruments so it sounds more, so it depends on the energy of the song, I think.
Yeah, I think it's like the subtlety. Like sometimes you could go for like this like wall of sound where it's like less subtle. You could end up like with a Born to Run type of arrangement, which is like super layered, or you can go for like shadow stuff. Like I think I was watching this thing with Peter Gabriel where he went on he had all these shadow vocals and shadow tracks that were very very minimal. You could hardly hear them. But when you hear it all together, it doesn't sound like there's a lot there, but there actually is. So sometimes it's interesting if you're more subtle or not, like hitting people over the head with it, and you have instruments coming in with like a subtle flavor, like you're saying, like the cello and some other instruments, like orchestral instruments, can come in that don't have to be overbearing. I think they can be more kind of like it just enhances the song.
Yeah, because I think some songs, if they're very upbeat, then it, for me at least, it makes sense to add more instruments to it to create like the effect of like a crowd is playing this.
Hmm.
as opposed to A Town Somewhere, which is very quiet and a very lonely song. So it doesn't have a lot going on.
Yeah, so the melancholiness, like if you get into a melancholy mood or in kind of like a more contemplative mood, you kind of end up being like singer songwriters from the 70s. You like the Karen Carpenter, you get into like Tapestry, Carole King. Those type of arrangements are more personal. The kind of personal relationship based or feel based or emotional based music is going to have like things in it that kind of focus on that, like an act, like when you I think a lot of times when I listen to music, I see it as like a sound painting, and some things make you feel melancholy, some things make you feel upbeat, and it's kind of like the mood of how you introduce those instruments kind of helps decide what that's going to be.
Yeah, definitely.
So it sounds cool. I mean, it sounds like you've been doing a lot of work, even though you're quarantined. You got a lot done.
Thanks. I just like to keep busy as much as I can.
Well, I know some artists that got they found themselves like not knowing what to do. Like I was talking to one guy who was a drummer for a rock band, and like everybody in the rock band, pretty much a keyboard player and a bass player and a guitar player and a singer, they were able to kind of work remotely. But he found it very difficult to do his drum tracks in isolation because like he'd get a tape and do it, but he was kind of like the type that he actually liked to be there with the full band.
Yeah.
And I found that like there's artists like that have kind of struggling. They can't get the performance in that they want. They did as much as they could and they try to do the best they can, but it feels like they can't do what they want to do. But I think when we're more of a singer-songwriter producer, that we have more control, so we can kind of do exactly what we want.
Yeah.
So it's not a big issue if you're like a producer, singer-songwriter, and then you can kind of like, well, I've always kind of done this, and I work with people, and maybe I don't get to work with that producer, or I don't get to work with this other person, but I've always had the capability of doing it all myself if I had to. So
Yeah.
It seems like you've in that kind of same zone, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So are you, the kind of question goes then, have you been collaborating with anybody, or are you just focusing on your own projects, or have you been doing features or anything with anybody else?
At the moment, it's just been my projects. I did last year when lockdown first started do a collab that was completely like over Skypes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But after that one, I've just been working on my own.
Yeah, I've tried. Well, I did one collab this year with a Canadian poet, a spoken word poet, and I did all the music, and she did all the vocals and the lyrics, and that was kind of cool. Trying to work on another one, but I tend to do mostly my own work. But from time to time, I get like, okay, I'm kind of bored with just doing my own work, and so I kind of need to like interact with some other people, and I'll create like a band project with some other guys, just to because I'm a keyboardist, so it's like, okay, the band needs a keyboardist. I'll just go and play keyboards for them because I like the interaction.
Yeah.
Just because we playing live, it's kind of fun just to be there as part of that unit. But like since you have a focus, like you're a singer songwriter, would you ever join like somebody else's band, or would you have people join your band?
I don't actually know. I mean, I am quite a shy person when I'm around big groups of people, so I don't know how it would work for me. Like, when I'm writing a song, I like to be alone in my room and not have anyone hear the process of actually writing it, the ideas that I go through.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would make me a bit self-conscious about it.
Yeah, you're the classic singer songwriter. That's kind of like, you think about like a Dylan or Conor Oberst or Carole King. Like that is a very personal thing. And I think a lot of times as a songwriter, for me too, is like when I'm doing my own ghost work, that's all like me. If I go to work with somebody else, like when I worked with Control K or Lonnie Claire, that was like a band project. And so it's like, okay, then I have to like not be myself where I kind of am a control person. And it's like, okay, I have to let go, because like, okay, I have a vision what I think, but if I'm working with this band, then everybody's like, and the weird thing with the band dynamic is it's not always like there's four guys and it's 25, 25, 25, right? Sometimes one guy's putting more than the other guy. And then everybody's kind of like, well, everybody puts something in, but sometimes there's always somebody putting a little bit more or a little bit less. And then everybody's kind of like looking at each other. It's like, well, are you going to step up? Again, not step up. So, well, maybe you don't need to because that's the best. He can just do this or she can just do that. So it's always like a compromise. When you're in a band, it's like, and that's why I think a lot of bands break up because you got like four people and it's kind of like a bad marriage when it goes bad or a bad relationship because like people have all these like resentments because, well, I wanted to do this and you wouldn't let me do it. And I wanted to have this part and you wouldn't let me do that. And you didn't show up. And so I think a lot of times as a singer songwriter, I've liked the control and the peace of, I don't have to hear all that noise, of the process. And, I think the process of working with people is cool, but there is like the fact that you have to engage, that you can't just do what you want. You have to compromise. And, some folks don't want to do that. Is that it seems like you as an artist, you'd rather be a solo artist then. Is that the bottom line?
Yeah, I think so. Because again, with my writing, sometimes I will get an idea like midnight and I'll get out of bed and just write it. So I don't think you could do that with a band.
No, unless you're hanging with them on the tour bus and say, hey, I got an idea. You want to hear it? It's like maybe not. Or like when the Stones were in Paris hanging in a house, it used to be the bands would go, like the Stones would rent a house in Paris and they'd all be like in the house. And then suddenly like Keith would get an idea and he's like, hey, Mick, I got this. Mick Taylor get an idea, oh, I got this. Because they're all living in a house. I think I saw something about Elton John. They would like get houses for like Yellow Brick Road. He got a house and everybody was there. And they kind of just bounce stuff off each other. So, oh, I got something. And I think when you have that kind of scenario, which I think is rare now because now record companies don't actually pay you to rent a house for 6 months, where you could actually be with your band for 6 months, sitting in a house in Paris or in Germany or Berlin, and you can hang out. And it's kind of cool, but I don't think people have that unless they actually have a band that's on in a van or they're hanging in a hotel and maybe they can pull out a tape recorder and acoustic guitar and come up with something. But yeah, it seems like the world's totally different now. Everybody's on their DAW.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of like almost on Skype, do you want me to call you at 3 in the morning if I got an idea? Do you really want me to do that? It's like, I don't know. So it's great having you on the program again. So do you have, I guess you don't have a target date for the EP yet, but do you have more singles coming out?
Yes, I do. So I am hoping to get the next one pretty soon. Probably not this month because I want this month to be more a town somewhere.
Mm-hmm. You want to give that time to kind of breathe, get out there. Yeah, sometimes we artists, I think we make the mistake of stomping on our own work because like we got so much work, and it's like, okay, I'd like to put this one out, and then it's like, well, you got to let that stay out there for like 4 months before you put the next one. I'm like, oh, I want to put the next one. But like if you get a manager, they're like, just keep one out there and push that. And I was like, well, I want to push like 3.
It is tempting.
Yeah, it's like I got 3 ideas that kind of go together. Can I put them on different places and like kind of sneak them out? But yeah, do you ever find it's like, okay, I got to hold back your content to let it kind of get some time out there?
Yeah, I think, for example, those were the days I finalized the idea like around January, I think, that okay, these are the songs that are gonna be in this because they all make sense under this title. but then I kept writing, and I had still a few more songs that didn't make it into this because I felt it didn't fit the theme. So it's also not just the songs that are already ready to go, but also new songs that I've written that I'm like, well, I just wrote this and I want to share it, but I have a whole 7-song EP waiting.
Yeah, I remember that I was reading that Prince used to run into this problem that he, he's always writing all the time, like crazy, and he would have an album in the can, and then he suddenly have like half of another one, and then his whole thing was, well, the music is kind of like the news, and this is where I am now, and he sometimes he would actually say, I like what I'm doing now better than what I gave Warner Brothers. And so he would tell them, don't put that out. I want to do the thing I just did now. And then they were like, what? But we like what you just did. And so he was always having this problem where like he was already like somewhere else. And then he didn't want to work on the work he already submitted because he was just kind of going on and on. I mean, I think Frank Zappa did stuff like that where he just kept on, he would put like 2 records out in the same year. And I said, well, okay, let's see which one does better. Most record companies today was like, well, you can make a decision. You can't put 2, pick one. And then back in the 70s, and people could get away with that. You're like, okay, Frank, well, we'll just put both of them out and see what happens. And back then they would do it. But like today, they're like, maybe you could do that as a mixtape. Maybe you could just put it on SoundCloud or something. But, it's harder, I think, to do that in some ways, or maybe easier in other ways if you do it in a different form. If you do, okay, I'm going to just do this video, and then this record will come out, and the video actually won't come out as a real song, as a release. It will be like a separate thing. Then you can kind of sneak things out.
Yeah, I think, like, for example, doing the video for this or planning videos for other things has kind of been keeping me, like, creatively active so that I don't want to, like, oh, but what about this song? What about this song? So that I actually.
Well, that's a good idea. Like if you.
Those were the days.
Yeah, working on a video for something that is going to come out is at least it's not stomping on the fact that it's going to help that release. So like if you got an EP and you just did this video and then you say, okay, now I'm going to put my work into the next videos, it's still promoting that same project. So you're not jumping into the next project, even though you might have written songs that actually are for the next project. And the cool thing about the songs for the next project, those are cool when you play live, because then you can kind of give the audience a bigger set list and you have more to play. So I think our artists always kind of have in their back pocket the newest stuff. And they, you can see all these old classic bands from Zeppelin to Who. They would go on stage at certain periods. You go watch an old concert of the Who in the 70s, and they would be previewing like Quadrophenia tracks that hadn't even come out. They would actually just play them. And people were like, whoa, that's a new song. I never heard that. And I think it's always cool when you see a band live when they do that. I'm kind of the fan that, like, I actually want to hear you play something that you didn't put out. Because I'm kind of kind of going into, like, I want to hear the B-sides. I want to hear the outtakes. That's the kind of fan I am, but yeah. I don't know about other people.
Yeah, I think that would have been really fun because I was essentially writing this while my last EP, This Is What Poets Write About, was coming out. So it would have been fun if we could still perform and I could maybe sing these along with them.
Yeah, because I think that's still an opportunity. You could live stream something. Sometimes it's cool to see the reaction to an idea, to see how the fans react to it. So if you can kind of throw it on a mixtape or throw it on some other form before you fully publish it, then you can kind of get like, instant impact of, I think this is great. But then the fans are like, I don't really like it. but that doesn't matter. Like when you do an album, like if I do an album and I know I have a song that's not really going to be a single, it's still part of the overall theme. I think that's the whole thing about I like about EPs and albums is like you can take songs that necessarily aren't singles, but they actually help the concept of the project. And so it's not going to, make money or be a big hit, but it's part of the theme. So it still should be in the project.
Yeah.
Is that what you like about doing like EPs and albums, that you can have songs that maybe aren't necessarily singles?
I think that too, definitely. But the main thing I love about EPs is you get a theme and then you get to almost create a little world around it, and how all the songs tie to each other. Because I studied literature, so I love looking at how different things might relate to another. So I love reading through lyric booklets whenever I get a new album. um, so that has been my reason for liking EPs, I think.
Yeah, I think I always liked albums and EPs because I think music is like it's like listening to a novel. When you have an artist that has a theme or uses their albums to kind of do this complete world, right? So I'm a big fan of like progressive bands like, Yes or Genesis. So you would listen to an album and Peter Gabriel had these themes in the early Genesis. Like these are actual, like real, like reading like a short story or a short science fiction novel on some of the songs. And they're like, okay, this is this big idea. And then it's really cool to actually listen to his vision and kind of visualize it myself. And I think that's what's really important about the album form. We're kind of living in an era of the Spotify playlist or the Tidal playlist or the Apple playlist, and you get a hodgepodge of maybe like styles of music by the same type of artist doing the same type of thing, but you're not getting their vision. That if you go to their album, that's their vision. You're getting a piece of their vision out of context. And I think I'm more of an album person because I'm in my 50s, whatever. I kind of grew up with albums, but it seems like bands are getting back to albums, and I'm hoping that's a trend, or at least EPs seem to be coming out more. What are your feelings about that? Are you feeling that the pressure to do like Spotify playlist type of recording, or you're like, oh, I'm just going to do it the way I want?
I think because I also grew up with just buying albums of bands or singers that I liked. So I like that it's like one piece and it just makes sense on its own. So yeah, I think I like albums over playlists.
Yeah, it's been my preference. I mean, I have my daughter. She's more of a playlist person. She's young, 20-year-old, 20 something. So she's always showing me new stuff. I was okay, well, that's cool. I can find new bands and maybe I can go interview them. So I kind of use it for that. But like my preference, like when I listen to it, is to go, like I just got back into vinyl because I'm like, you know what? I like the whole experience of picking up an artist and reading the lyric sheet, getting the artwork in that big form. And I've been trying to get one of my pieces of work into that form, and I'm still working on it. I'm going to try to get it out just because I feel like it engages the fans in a way that other forms, like like the CD, even tapes, don't engage in the way that a vinyl record, if you put it together with the package. I think that engages. Have you ever thought, like, if you could get to that, would you want to put out one of your projects like in vinyl?
Maybe. I mean, I personally don't have any vinyl records that I've bought because I just grew up with CDs. I didn't really
Yeah, it's
get
a different feel. Yeah.
But I think it would be cool because they are quite pretty and they do have that kind of energy to them. Like, I think that's the best word I can describe.
Yeah, I think the thing I like about it is, like, I used to pick up the lyric sheets. What I like is the presentation, that if you choose to do it, in the bands I loved it, like they would have these lyric sheets, like all the lyrics are there. They'd have, stickers, posters. And so it engaged you as a fan. It's like, whoa, cool. There's like posters in here. There's like a postcard. There's stickers. And there's, a lyric sheet that you can actually read it because it's big. And it's got all this artwork. And I just thought that it was like, okay, now I really understand what they're trying to say on top of the music. They had this whole idea. And I think it just gave like photographers and artists and other people a really cool way to make it a full artistic statement, But I saw the transition to CD and I went to that, but I'm kind of rebelling and going back to my vinyl. It's because I like it, but I don't know. I know people will argue which one actually sounds technically better, but I always contend to like my vinyl. But that's the separate thing. So I'm glad that you came on the program. This has been showing on all of our channels, the YouTube, the Facebook, and our Twitch. We will send you the links to those after this. It will still be converted to an audio only through Anchor, and we'll give you the Spotify and the Apple version of this within like an hour or two. But we're happy that you came on the program. This is like a new form, and when your EP drops, let us know and we can do another episode.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But thank you.
Nice being here.
You like it? It's different, I know. It's not the same as the audio one.
It's nice.
You like it though? Cool. Well, I'm glad to have you on the program. Oh, one other thing we're thinking about is the Ghost. We've been thinking about doing like an online festival at some point, either this year or next year. And we're asking like almost all the bands and artists that we've talked to, would they be interested if we created a way for you to, do an acoustic performance through our like show here? So we'd have a show, and our full concept is to actually, because we've interviewed almost 50 artists in the last 2 years, is have like a multiple day event. And based on your time zone, you'd be in a slot where everybody play like 10, 15, 20 minutes. And you could actually play. And then we might have promoters and advertisers and stuff in between the sets. But is that something you would be interested in?
Yeah, definitely. I think that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, if you can't do it in a physical space, then we got to do it in a virtual space. So that's my idea. Okay, in the same way I talk to people, like let's give all the artists we talk to a venue and use this show as the venue. So that's my idea. Just trying to make sure I got a good enough sound quality. That's the testing we're doing to see if if you actually perform, is it going to be up to snuff for people to actually want to listen to it? Is it coming out at the right quality? That's one thing we're looking at. But thank you for being on the show, Regina Fae. Everybody go out and check out her catalog. We have her links on this podcast, and we've got these permanent links. You want to see the YouTube video, go and check it out. Thank you for being on the show, Regina.
Thank you for having me.
Is it nighttime or daytime?
Setting.
Setting. Yeah, we're still midday, but we'll talk to you again. Thank you for being on the program.
Thank you.